So I know as guitar players, we all want to have better tone, and we think sometimes the answer is just buying more gear, better gear, just practicing as much as we possibly can on stuff. And all that stuff absolutely has helped. There's a few ideas I got here that are going to help you have instant results, getting much better tone. Let's just get right into it. The first one is just being very aware of your environment. And think of the first thing is just, are you playing inside? Are you playing outside? And it may seem obvious, but just how much are you really listening to how your guitar sounds, whether you're playing acoustic or electric, to, if you're inside, outside, or if you're inside, maybe you're playing like a small room versus a church, totally different environment. You gotta be aware of that stuff, and not just the spaces you're playing in, but also the other sounds. Are there other sounds that are what they call masking certain frequencies? I don't like listening to music while I drive that much because the sound of the engine and the tires on the pavement just have this low rumble that just kind of mask over the bass, and it just doesn't. To me, it's just not a good representation of what music should be sounding like. So it's just you're hearing half the music really. So you just got to really listen to your environment and make sure you know how it sounds. When I first started playing, it was like I think my second band I was in. I was about 20. And I was very fortunate to have this really amazing guitar player play with us, and we would share a lot of leads and stuff. And he was in his 50s. He'd been playing forever and used to play for a living. So he was just a killer player. And I noticed that at the beginning of our practices, he sounded very thin and weak. And I thought I sounded great. I was like, my tone was killer. I was about getting ready to go to school for jazz, so I had this big semi-hollow, and I played real bassy, and I'd been playing bass for years before too, so I liked that thick tone. And I just noticed, sounded good, but I would record every practice, and then I would listen to the practices, and then it was like, wait, I sound awful, I can't even hear myself, and he sounds amazing, his tone specifically. And it took me many times, and finally I was like, oh, it's because it doesn't matter how I sound, how we sound on our own, it's the context what really matters. And if you play in a band and you practice on your own, you gotta remember that the way you practice on your own is gonna be different than when you're playing with the band. And if you play out with the band, it's gonna be different than when you're playing wherever you rehearse. So I really changed my tone after that. That was a good lesson in how tone is, and it's not always as it seems. So my second tip is to really experiment. Don't play it safe. If you're playing acoustic, try playing with your fingers, try playing with a pick, playing different spots, notice that stuff. But if you got electric, you got a lot of options. Notice the different guitars. If you've got different pickups, try those out, of course, and different things with your EQ. If you've got an amp, if you're playing electric, of course, hopefully you got an amp, or maybe you got an iRig, I don't know these days. But just try all the knobs, the buttons, the switches, your pedals. Don't hold back. When I used to teach private lessons, beginner electric students would come in, sometimes would bring in their amp, and they'd be like, I don't even know what to do. And they'd want me to kind of give them a crash course on explaining it so they would understand it, because they were confused by it. Maybe they wanted me to find the manual and show them. And that stuff's helpful, but what's better is to just try it out. I would just usually have them play, and I'd just be turning knobs and be like, how does this sound? What do you think this does? And you may think, oh, I know all this stuff, but really, just try extremes. Don't play it safe. Just recently, I learned a good lesson. Just a couple months ago, I was trying to learn some Derek Trucks licks. He's one of my favorite players. He's such a monster. And I just started playing in open E, just like he does, and playing slide. And I was trying to learn these licks, and I just couldn't quite get my drive to sound the way his did. And I got a couple of Wampler Tumnus overdrive pedals, and one is kind of like a light distortion, overdrive, and the other one's heavy, and then sometimes I'll play the two of them together. So I got three sounds, and none of them were getting close to the kind of amount of overdrive he had, and I was getting frustrated because I really liked that tone. And then I realized, like, oh, you know what? Just turn up my treble right there. Just turn it all the way up, which I don't normally do. I don't normally just go that extreme. And it was like I had it all the way up, then I dialed it back a little bit, and that was it. I was like, that was it. Even though I know I wasn't playing an SG, that would have helped, but it didn't matter. I got the sound that I was looking for in terms of the overdrive kind of amounts, so try that out, because pedals are like, say, a pedal is not just, doesn't sound just the way it sounds. It's what's going into it is going to affect what comes out. And just the little things like different guitars, but even little things like just changing your EQ can make a big difference to that specific pedal, to a delay, to an overdrive pedal, whatever it may be. Now the third thing may seem the most obvious, but it's probably the most important, is to remember that it's all about you. You're the one who gives it the tone. It's not the gear. So if you've got serious gas, serious gear acquisition syndrome, I'm not telling you to stop, because buying new gear can certainly help. If you could buy, much better quality stuff than what you've got now, absolutely. But it's much more important to, again, know the gear, but also just focus on your own playing, because that is what makes the music. There's a famous story from Chet Atkins that he was playing somewhere and some woman came up and said, "Wow, that guitar sounds so beautiful." And he stopped playing, he stared at her and said, "Oh yeah? How does it sound now?" And it's just a, reminder that it's not the guitar. I've been holding this guitar but not playing it purposely the whole time. You may look at it and be like, "Oh, it's a nice guitar," or maybe you don't, I don't know. But you don't even know how it sounds. Even though it may look like a guitar that sounds good, maybe it does. We don't know. It's just there, and it's about the player, So, players that have really good gear can sound horrible, and players that have horrible gear can make it sound good too. So make sure that you're doing what you can to change your tone and play your gear the best you can, and make sure that you really experiment. Don't hold back. Go nuts with all the knobs and things you've got. Really give it a listen and see how everything interacts with each other. And of course, listen to the environment, how it sounds where you are, and keep in mind that where you're practicing is not going to always be where you're practicing with other people or performing and things like that. Now, if you got a guitar now, try this stuff out yourself. You guarantee you, just focusing on these things will give you a much better tone like that. And if you like this video but you don't have a guitar now but you want to watch more, check out the video over here, because YouTube thinks it's going to solve all your problems.